Hey guys, I've been job hunting, but in between all that, I finally watched the new Superman movie, and I love what it represented. For starting off, right, so Superman and Lex are like the opposite of each other, and as such, they're the perfect mortal enemies. But if you don't know who Lex Luthor is, the movie does a good job at telling you the synopsis of his character, especially for our modern sensibilities. The original Superman showed Lex Luthor as a type of businessman, but the modern version shows him as a hyper intelligent, multi governing force of ego, aligning himself with whatever gets him whatever he wants. I see Lex as a mix between Tony Stark and Reed Richards, the intellectual pillars of the Marvel realistic take on the superhero. Lex Luthor is basically the devil, tempting Superman into his worst behavior so that he may ruin what he represents, a version of him that is incorruptible. Lex wants what Superman has to be the perfect man or to be the Superman. Lex is willing and able to sell his humanity to satisfy his own ego. In a way, it's one for all versus all for one. Superman makes the all-powerful Lex Luthor feel inferior, and that made me think of Batman, who is like a version of Lex Luthor that never sells his humanity for power and is able to stand next to Superman as an equal, both standing up for their ideas no matter how hard doing the job is. While Lex becomes a vessel for pride, acknowledging it as a way to surpass Superman, to surpass what is, Batman becomes a vessel of hope, like Superman. Superman is not great because of his powers, he's great because of his ability to always find a way. In Lex, he sees a selfish person with so much to give to the world, so much that he keeps to himself for the sake of his ego. Despite that, Superman sees the good and potential Lex has in serving the world. We have two opposite takes on the Superman mindset. We have the Man of Steel and we have the Big Blue version. Man of Steel is a god man, not sure and how to use his powers because he questions everything. In Big Blue, we see someone that sees the best in us, from the way he moves in the world, the way he sees and values things. He represents truth and justice in the American way manifested. America may be the most hypocritical country, but in Superman's ideology, we remove the negative. Superman doesn't see America's mistakes because he kept all of the good of America growing up as basically a Boy Scout. Lex, on the other hand, is also the Superman, one of the richest guys in the world, completely self-serving, exploiting humanity for his own personal gain, and calling it business. The relationship between Lex and Superman made the film, as Superman isn't a movie about a man versus another man, it's a movie about a man versus the system, and Lex is the benefactor of that system. Even with all the poverty, war, and suffering, the system keeps moving, like everything is working just as fine, because it's doing exactly what it was built to do. Some say that Superman gets to beat up in the movie, but I actually like that. Lex was able to give Superman an actual challenge because he understands him in and out, recording all his moves, setting up traps beforehand, moving governments around so that he can have the excuse to kill Superman. Lex becomes the face of the very system Superman is here to protect. He doesn't believe Superman is here to help. Superman isn't hope to him, he's the enemy. He's an uncontrolled factor and better left dead or under his control. Lex is everything Superman is not, and is the guy in power, in real life. Ego manifested on Earth waiting for selflessness to punch it in the face. If I may, it seems like the more we move from centralized information, the more we turn away from experts of old. More like con artists or con men. But maybe I don't trust old people, but that's just me. Now it's not, and Superman is in a way what society wants, not a Reed Richards. Marvel and DC represent two sides of the superhero idea. DC as the original gets to be the idealized version. Marvel as a follow-up plays on the elements established by DC, by questioning elements about it, as if to say this is how it should actually be, or how it actually would be. The dreamer of DC created the tropes Marvel breaks down, the mental breakdown of it. It's to say why DC villains are more interesting than the heroes. DC heroes are the ideals. They don't get to be window characters or relatable to the flawed audience, they have to be perfect. Marvel as a follow-up reversed this, making the heroes the flawed ones, creating stronger villains that aren't as interesting. The two most human heroes, Spider-Man and Batman, both intercept in this really interesting way where both become the centerpieces for their greater universe. Spider-Man is allowed to be more interesting than his villains, while Batman is defined by his. Superman isn't just an alien, a god, or a demon, he's the Superman. Like Captain America, Steve was great inside before he was outside, but was made greater outside later. a mind produced by the American ideal, both a land of oppression as well as mental freedom. The all-American boy takes all of the good and none of the bad. Superman is from another time. This brings me to my problem with the new Fantastic Four. In a time where we are done questioning, where we need to have hope and move on, as Marvel comes after DC, Reed the Scientist replaced the idea of good, let's say anxiety, or anxiety replaced virtue. We don't need to fear something bad would happen, because something bad is always gonna happen. What we need is Superman, a Superman inside all of us. Maybe a brain like Reed will help, but left unchecked we develop into the Iron Man. Super soldiers turned into superheroes. The idea of the Superman evolved over time throughout the war and modern era, and from Superman to Captain America, from soldier to hero, the idea of the Superman changes over time depending on what the need of the masculine ideal is. DC dreams and Marvel ties with reality. Marvel becomes the counterweight to the hero identity. Superman is always gonna be the original and the idea before it's questioned. As we start to get all these other versions of Superman, some good and some not so good, we start to move away from the original idea of hope, truth, and justice in the American way. A Superman that questions his own faith is no longer Superman, just a man with godlike powers without faith equals to the DCU Man of Steel that's just an oral farmer. Behind it all, I see a movie that was long, kinda heavy on the details, but places male ideas, understanding, kindness, and faith in front of its action. As a male, it made me feel emotional. Finally seeing someone like him on the screen, I love Superman and what he represented. I think the main takeaway here is that Tony Stark is dead. Leading its way to the Superman movie, the MCU did a great representation up to that point of what the ideal hero looked like during that time. Playboy millionaire Tony Stark. The hero before Superman, Tony is an engineer at heart, representing the hero throughout the 2010s. He isn't the ideal of any sorts, he's kinda just an asshole. Marvel is like a science experiment gone wrong, covered in sci-fi horror vibes. Most of its heroes are steeped in humanity. Hulk is a freak of anger and radiation, Spider-Man is a radioactive mutant, and the Wolverine is a failed living weapon. Tony Stark is a billionaire alcoholic control freak. The real-life Superman is a war profiteering force of nature. Tony is a system, or in a way, the idealized version of our system. The billionaire Lee, who controls most of the world's wealth, has limited resources to create anything, but ends up creating more regulations for control for themselves. In Marvel, we see the most ideal version of DC's idea in the most relatable form. Lex Luthor is basically the closest thing we have to a Superman in the real world, a combo between Tony and Reed, but he's the villain in Superman's story. Superman isn't supposed to be real, he's the perfect man, he's a symbol. Tony and Reed are always dealing with the stress of not knowing, sometimes that stress creating the things to worry about themselves. DC already thought about Reed and Tony and combined them into Lex before the concept came to be, as Superman is the opposite of ego. He's kindness, truth, and justice. Tony is a war profiteer and Reed is a scientist, people playing God and coming out at the other end with power. In Marvel, where reality is based, we see them in their best light, but in a world where dreams and gods walk beside us, Lex is the devil, controlling humanity for his personal gain, and Superman is here to give us hope. Tony Stark is dead, either you die a hero or you live long enough to turn into the villain. But hey, those are kind of my thoughts regarding the movie. I loved it. I felt like it did a good job of being a Superman story and kind of touching the current zeitgeist and what it means to be a guy right now. I think it's interesting how Marvel and DC interconnect in these ways that the realism of it can get interjected with the idealism of it, and how Superman competes with the real life idea of a Superman, which is just somebody with a lot of resources, and that ends up looking in comics or fiction as somebody with unlimited power, versus the reality of just someone that has a lot of money or a lot of control or influence. But yeah, if you made it through this long of the video, thank you for your time. I can't make as much content because of personal stuff, but I'm still here, and yeah, I appreciate it. Stay safe.